This recording is a recording that's part of the set of recordings that I cover for the endocrine system. This specifically will address the parathyroid glands. So the parathyroid glands, typically you have 4 parathyroid glands, which you see here. Those are found on the posterior aspect of your thyroid glands. So think about why they call it the parathyroid glands, because they're kind of next to the thyroid gland. So they're on the back part of it. Now these glands produce a hormone called parathyroid hormone. Now parathyroid hormone secretion is subject to humoral stimulation. And these cells are called, these cells, they're called chief cells in the parathyroid gland, produce parathyroid hormone, which is a polypeptide hormone. This hormone has a very short half-life. And the hormone will be secreted when your blood calcium levels get too low. So when blood calcium levels get too low, it senses this and then it releases parathyroid hormone into the bloodstream. Well, the parathyroid hormone, its job ultimately is to get the blood calcium levels back up. And it does it by a number of different mechanisms. One of the targets is within the bone, and it results an increase in bone resorption. This is a term where we're going to be breaking down the bone. And because what happens is, you see right here, is it results in increased osteoclast activity, which stimulates the breakdown of bone. And why would do that? Well, your bone has a lot of calcium in it. And so this calcium will be released into the bloodstream. The thing is, bone also has a lot of phosphate with it. And so I have to mention to you that the regulated calcium that we have, it's free, it's ionized, it's not bound to anything. Calcium, some of the calcium in our blood is bound to plasma proteins. Some is associated with anions such as phosphate. So I want to make sure my free ionized calcium is sufficient. So if you're breaking down bone, you're releasing both calcium and phosphate into the bloodstream. I don't want that phosphate around. I just want the calcium. We will take care of that. So just give me a moment and we'll show you how we're going to take care of that. So first, you increase the resorption of bone by increasing the activity of osteoclasts. That helps to get the calcium levels up. Over in the kidneys, one of the things that we'll do is it increases the reabsorption of calcium, because you're filtering your blood to try to get rid of waste products. But the thing is, we're filtering good stuff like calcium. So we want to make sure we get it back. And so parathyroid hormone will increase the reabsorption of calcium. But it also, at the same time, increases the excretion of phosphate. So that's how we're going to take care of that phosphate. I don't want the phosphate. I just want the calcium. Well, another thing that parathyroid hormone does is it stimulates the production of calcitriol production in the kidney. So calcitriol is a hormone produced in the kidney, and it's actually the active form of vitamin D, and it stimulates calcitriol production in the kidney. And what calcitriol then does is it targets the small intestine. And what it does, and this is specifically really calcitriol that does it, it increases calcium absorption. So if you've eaten something that has some calcium in it, we want to stimulate its absorption. And so that's going to be mediated through calcitriol. More calcitriol was around because of parathyroid hormone stimulated its production. So this would be an example of what we had mentioned in previous recordings of having complementary effects. We use the term integrative. They kind of complement each other. So once the calcium levels come back up, then the parathyroid hormone secretion is going to decrease. So parathyroid hormone production is subject to negative feedback inhibition. And I do want to make the note that parathyroid hormone is probably hands down the most important hormone for the regulation of blood calcium levels. Calcitonin, which is produced by the thyroid gland, is not. It is parathyroid hormone. If your blood calcium levels are too high, parathyroid hormone secretion would be very low. So parathyroid hormones involved in regulation of blood calcium levels. So I'm just going to do something real quick, is to kind of tie in some clinical stuff with talking about hormonal regulation. Is I want to just give you a mention of what would happen if I have a vitamin D deficiency, which is actually fairly common now because not a lot of people get enough exposure to sunlight. Well, vitamin D is needed for the production of calcitriol. That could lead to you not going to have a lot of calcium because it helps you to reabsorb that calcium from the food. And so, but your body says, no, I need to have sufficient levels of calcium. And so what I'm going to do is that can lead to increased parathyroid hormone secretion. And I actually refer to that as secondary hyperparathyroidism. Higher than normal levels of parathyroid hormone, but it's secondary to this, what's going on here. Obviously, we got a problem with vitamin D deficiency, so parathyroid hormone's not going to be real effective in increasing calcitriol formation, but it will stimulate the breakdown of bone, and so that can lead to osteoporosis. But you measure someone who's got secondary hyperparathyroidism, their blood calcium levels may be perfectly normal because of what parathyroid hormone is doing, but at the expense of the bone. So someone says, okay, you got vitamin D deficiency. You need to take some vitamin D supplements. Good. So they get the big horse pills, and they are horse pills. So they're going to take vitamin D. Well, some people can just take too much of it, and you can get vitamin D intoxication. So what would happen as a result of taking too much vitamin D? What would happen to parathyroid hormone levels in a person who was taking too much vitamin D? What's going to happen is their parathyroid hormone levels would be decreased as a result of it. Because take too much vitamin D, their blood calcium levels may start to get too high. It's like, no, we don't want that parathyroid hormone around now. And so parathyroid hormone secretion would decrease, and we'd actually refer to this secondary hypoparathyroidism. Just a little tidbit of information for you. Believe it or not, fairly common right there. All right, so this is the last bit for the parathyroid glands.